Hey everyone, I'm Amod and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video tutorial, we will learn about different types of functions in JavaScript. So a function in any programming language is a code block that performs a specific task. This code block is reusable and can be executed for different set of data. So basically functions in any programming language are building blocks. In JavaScript, a function can be created in different ways. So let's learn about frequently used ways to create a function in JavaScript. So let's start with basics. So to create a function in JavaScript, we need to use a keyword called function. You need to provide a meaningful name after this. Add. After name, use parentheses. Then opening and closing braces. Within these braces, we need to write logic to achieve some specific task. For example, I'm going to simply log 2 plus 2 and this function cannot be executed automatically. We need to explicitly call them. So to call this function, we need to use name of the function which is add, then use parentheses. That's all. Let me run this program and on the console we should see 4, which you can see now. So this is very basics of a function in JavaScript. A function can accept parameters. For example, if you want to add two numbers provided by user, then you can have n1, comma n2, and instead of 2 plus 2, I'm going to do n1 plus n2. So this is called parameterized function. So to call this function now, within the parentheses, we need to provide values for n1 and n2. So let me pass 10, comma 20. So in this case, 10 will be assigned to n1 and 20 will be assigned to n2. And if I run this program, it will add 10 plus 20 and 30 is printed on the console. So whatever function we have created as of now, this is called function declaration or function statement or named function. Why it is called named function? Because we have a name to this function. Before I explain the next type of function, I would like to cover basics of hosting here. We have declared the function here and then we are calling it, right? But we can call the function before declaring it as well. For example, I'm going to remove it from here and I'll go on top and I will call here. So basically, I'm trying to call a function which is declared later in the code. So the execution happens from top to bottom. So what do you think? What will happen in this case? Will it give me the output or it will give some error? Let me save and run it. So you can see it is still giving me 30. So basically, all the function declarations are moved on the top of their scope during the compilation. That's why this function is basically on the top. Then only when you call add function, it is executing the function without any problem. So this is called hosting. This concept is important because for the next type of function, we will see some different behavior. We know that a variable is a named memory location and that can hold a value. For example, we can use any keywords like where, let or const. So let me use where first and give a name to it, f1. And we can assign a value like 10. And let me print f1 as well. If you run it, you can see 10 is printed on the console. But it is possible a variable can hold a function also, not only number, boolean or strings. That means I can copy this function and I can put it here as well. So basically a variable can hold a function also. Now to call this function, I need to use the variable name. So use the variable name and then to call use the parentheses and here you need to pass the arguments. So 10, comma d. Run the program, you can see it repeating 30. So this way of creating a function is called function expression. So the only difference between these two is that here we are creating a function but we are not assigning to any variable. But here we are creating a function and assigning to variable. But in this case we need to call or use variable name to call the function. We cannot use this name because this will be created in local scope, and if you try to call like add, then it is going to give you some error. So it says add is not defined because here this add will be created in the local scope which will not be accessible outside of this block. So just to repeat, this is called function expression. Let me correct it. But hosting will behave little differently here and will not get the output as previous function type. For example, if I move this statement before the declaration and run the program, you can see it is giving f1 is not a function. But for the previous type, we were able to call this add before declaration as well. So actually what is happening, so all the function declaration and variable declaration will be hosted for sure. That means they will be moved on the top of their scope, which is global here for F1. But variables are not initialized. They will be aware that there is one variable called F1, but what is the value of that? That is not moved with the hosting. That's why here we are getting F1 is not a function. In the memory we have F1, but we are not sure what is the value of it. But once this line is executed in the memory, F1 will be updated and we can call F1 after this line anywhere. But this concept will be different for two other keywords, let and const. Let me use let here, and if I run the function, this time you can see cannot access F1 before initialization. So the error message is different in case of var and let. Same message you will get for const as well. So what is happening when we declare any variable using var, let or const? It does not matter what it is holding. They will be moved on the top of their scope, but for the var variable it will be undefined by default. But for the let and const, they will be moved to temporal dead zone. That means you cannot access it without initialization. That means until this line is executed. For example, if I remove this line from here and put it here, if you run, we'll see the output. In this function type, if you see carefully, this name is not at all required, because to call this function we need to use F1. So we can basically remove this name. So now whatever we have, this is called anonymous function. A function without a name is called anonymous function. But that does not mean we can create a function like this as well. Console.log something. So here I am using function declaration or function statement, but I'm not providing any name to it. So you can see it is giving error like identifier expected. So in this type, we must need to pass the name to the function. If you want to create an anonymous function, make sure that you assign the function to a variable. Let's see another type of function now. I'm going to create one function expression. So this time I will use const f1, then function. Let me use something n1 and I will log n1 on console. The same function we can write in more concise way. That means I will use another const variable, maybe f2 equal to. So here we can remove this function keyword and we'll just use this parameter. So copy it and paste it here. And now use arrow, then curly braces, and we can have this one. So this way is called arrow function, which was introduced in ES6. And in this way, we can write function in little concise way. Basically, we are removing some obvious things. So in this case, when we have only one parameter, we can remove this brackets as well. Similarly, if we have only one line, we can remove parentheses also. So basically, we can write in one line. And just to call this function, we need to use f2 and pass n1 value. Let me run and you can see it printing 10. If you have more than one parameters or statements, you can use n1 comma n2 but put in brackets. And here also if you have more than one line, then use braces. So let me log n2 as well. And here I can pass 10 comma 20. Let's run it, and this time you can see 10 and 20 both are printed on the console. Let's see another type. So as of now, we are creating a function, then calling it separately. But we can create a function and call immediately as well. So that is called immediately invoked function expression, or in short, IIFE. So let me quickly create one function expression, f1 function console.log IIFE, and then we generally call it like this one, like basic thing. If you run it, you'll see the IIFE on console. But suppose if your function is not going to be reused or you want to do some calculation in isolated scope. So instead of creating a function and then calling it later, we can use IIFE. For that, copy this and instead of F1, use brackets and put the copied content. Let's comment this. Save it and run it. So you can see it printing IIFE. So basically, a function is created and invoked immediately after creating it. And this is called immediately invoked function expression. Now let's see another type of function which is very much confusing for beginners and intermediate JavaScript developer, which is called callback function. So let me create a function using function declaration. So function f1, and it will accept a parameter, maybe name, and I'm going to log the name on console. So basically I can call f1 by passing the argument. If you run the program, it is going to print not the expected one because I need to use name here, not f1. Rerun it. This time it is printing Amod on the console. But it is possible in JavaScript to pass a function as an argument to another function. For example, for this variable name, I am passing Amod. Instead of Amod, I can pass a number as well, like 10. And if you run it, it will print 10. So in JavaScript, we are not declaring what type of variable it is. So if I have a new function here, maybe function f2, and it is simply printing on console like f2. So instead of 10 or Amod, I can pass f2 as well. So basically f2 is passed to f1, which will be stored in name. Now if you run the program, basically you can see it is showing that it is a function with the name f2. It is printing the name because here I'm not sure what it is, what type of it is. If it is a function, then we need to use brackets so that whatever function I'm passing, that will be called. If you run it, you can see it printing f2. So what happened? f1 will be called where name will be f2, and then here I'm using console.log then name. So it will come here and it will print f2, and since it is not returning anything, it will print undefined. So in short, we can pass a function as an argument to another function, and the function we pass, that is called a callback function, and to whom we pass the function, that is called higher order function. So this is the basic of callback function. But this concept we can use to control asynchronous behavior. For example, you are calling an API, and obviously that API may take some seconds to give you the response. In JavaScript, will not wait for that. So if you have some task which is dependent on the response of that API, so obviously we need to wait for the response. In that case, we can use callback function. So basically your callback function will have the logic which will use the response of the API, and once you get the API, call that function. Now let's see the last type of function in JavaScript, which is called async function, and this is also related to asynchronous behavior. For example, I'm going to have a function API data. I have one dummy API which I can call using fetch method, and the response of this API I'm going to store into a variable const response. I will convert this response to JSON and let me store the output into a variable data. Now I will simply log the data on console. Let me call API data function now. If I run this code, you can see it is giving some type error. Response.json is not a function. So when the execution started, it hit this API, but this API will take some time to return the response. But my JavaScript execution did not wait for it and it started executing this line. As of now, JavaScript is not sure what is the type of response. So when we call .json function on this, it is saying that response.json is not a function. So basically I need to wait till this fetch is returning the response. So for that, we have something called async await. For that, just use async keyword before the function keyword, and every statement in the function will have await in the beginning. So not here, here. Same thing here. Save it. Let me clear the console, and if you run the program, this time you can see it is printing the data. This was possible because of async and await. So when we create a function with async in the beginning, that is called asynchronous function. So using async function, we can achieve asynchronous programming in JavaScript. Here we can also use callback functions, but that will become a hell, which is also called as callback hell. Those concepts I will cover in some separate video. Basically in this video, I have covered frequently used different types of functions in JavaScript. So that's all in this video. If you have any doubt, please comment on this video. If you really like my videos, please like, comment, subscribe and share with others. Thank you everyone.